Did an ancient and advanced civilization capable of creating structures and artifacts that still appear incredible and mysterious today really exist in the distant past? And if it did exist, why don't we have irrefutable evidence of its existence? These are questions that are often asked by viewers who watch our videos, but maybe they are based on a false assumption. That is, are we really sure that there is no evidence, or at least clear and precise clues, of the existence in the ancient past of a lost technology? Our opinion is that, in reality, there are multiple pieces of evidence and clues indicating that in the distant past, there was a civilization much more advanced than what is commonly accepted. And in this video, we will try to answer these interesting questions, and we will try to do so by analyzing specific elements. To answer these questions, we need to identify those elements that are defined as technological markers, meaning those artifacts that reveal a technology not possessed by the inhabitants of a certain place at a specific point in history. Well, but before we start this fascinating journey, as we always do, and if you haven't done it yet, we invite you to subscribe to the channel to support our work and not miss our new videos. Ancient Egypt is an enigmatic civilization full of mysteries. Even today, for example, when we look at the magnificence of the pyramids, we can't help but be amazed by their grandeur, and the debate about who built them and how is still open. And there are many theories that researchers have put forward over the years. Who built them? What were they for? Could a people who were, all things considered, primitive have created this kind of work? And what about the mysterious walls of Cusco? The precision with which the carvings of the enormous stone blocks were made is astonishing, and it opens up countless possibilities and questions. Our list could go on with Göbekli Tepe, a discovery that completely rewrites everything we thought we knew about our past. But if these are just a couple of examples of places full of charm and mystery, supporting those who believe that an ancient civilization existed in the distant past, there is a vast literature on the subject. Our list could continue with Göbekli Tepe. The story of an ancient catastrophe that destroyed the ancient world is present in almost every culture around the world. The story of ancient sages, bearers of knowledge, who travel around the world spreading their wisdom to the peoples who survived a global catastrophe, can be found in the texts of various cultures. For example, they are called the Anunnaki in ancient Mesopotamian culture, the descendants of Horus in ancient Egypt, or the Watchers among the peoples of South America. And that something extraordinary really happened in the relatively recent history of our planet is also confirmed by mainstream science. Core samples taken from the Antarctic ice have actually confirmed that about 13,000 years ago, there was a sudden increase of dust, metals, and other debris in our planet's atmosphere. All of this would seem to indicate a major impact event, such as the fall of a large asteroid. This tremendous impact would have caused, in addition to a destructive event on a global scale, a radical change in the climate with a sudden cooling, which would have led to the mass extinction of numerous species of animals and plants. This period, called the Younger Dryas, would have lasted about 1,000 years. Then suddenly, due to an event that is still unclear, in the following 100 years, the climate would have warmed up and stabilized at today's levels. So, if an advanced civilization had existed before these tragic events, we would find traces of it today. As we mentioned earlier, if we look at ancient texts, we actually find various references and clues that suggest all of this could have been possible. A very ancient civilization could in fact have been destroyed by these terrible events, but it was not completely wiped out. The survivors traveled around the world and tried to pass on their knowledge to all those less advanced peoples who had escaped the catastrophe. Testimonies of this kind, as we know, can be found in the Old Testament of the Christian tradition, in mythology, and in Indian sacred texts among the Sumerians, and in the myth of Atlantis mentioned by Plato. In the Ramayana, the Hindu sacred text, we read, for example,
The sky turned red and the earth trembled. A flood of fire fell from the sky. The whole world was destroyed.
We find the same elements, for example, in the Popol Vuh of the Mayan tradition, where the destruction of the first world is described.
A flood came that destroyed the earth. The sky darkened and the earth trembled. The people scattered and their language became confused.
If these are just two examples from the mythological tradition of two cultures of the ancient world, we find evidence of comets, extinct animals, and floods in rock art all over the world. For example, in France, in the Lascaux Cave, in Val Camonica in Italy, in the petroglyphs of Sago Canyon in the United States, or on some pillars found at the site of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. The precise dating of these carvings is uncertain, but their association with the Younger Dryas era is based on factors such as the style, the content of the carvings, and dating methods. Some of these carvings have actually been dated using radiocarbon dating and have provided an exact age for their creation, which perfectly matches the period of the Younger Dryas. As we have just seen, there are many accounts that speak of a civilization predating those we know, as well as representations of a catastrophic event that brought this civilization to an end. But as we said at the beginning of the video, today our research focuses on the analysis of those technological markers that prove the existence of a superior technology at a time when it was not possible for such technology to be widespread. So let's go back to Egypt and head to Saqqara. In Saqqara, we find the pyramid of Djoser, which is considered by Egyptologists to be the oldest Egyptian pyramid that has survived to this day. The pyramid is located northeast of Memphis, the ancient capital of Egypt, and according to official reconstructions, it dates back to the 3rd dynasty, so to 2686 BC. Saqqara is also famous for the Serapeum, an underground temple dedicated to the god Apis. Inside the galleries, located beneath the temple, enormous sarcophagi have been found, made from blocks of granite and weighing up to 70 tons. These were discovered in 1851 by Auguste Mariette, a French archaeologist, and according to official accounts, the sarcophagi were supposed to contain the mummified remains of bulls, but in reality nothing has ever been found inside them, and the site remains shrouded in mystery to this day. But the sarcophagi of the Serapeum of Saqqara are not the only mystery present at the site. Something much simpler and in some ways trivial challenges the reconstructions of Egyptologists and could represent that technological marker we are looking for. We are referring to the vases of Pharaoh Djoser, a collection of about 40,000 vases that the ruler of the land of the Nile, famous for the step pyramid of Saqqara, built for him by the architect Imhotep, is said to have assembled around 2800 BC. But what is so special about these vases? Before analyzing the technical data that make these artifacts unique, it is essential to remember that throughout its history, humanity has mostly shaped vases using ductile materials such as clay, terracotta, and blown glass. In some cases, more resistant materials have been used, such as alabaster, which however remains relatively easy to work with. Generally, craftsmen use the potter's wheel to give vases the characteristic rounded shape that we all know. The peculiarity of these artifacts found at Saqqara is that not only could they not have been made with the potter's wheel, but they are also not made with this type of material. Most of them are actually made of granite and even diorite. And this, which might seem like a minor detail, completely changes the whole issue. To fully understand the importance of the issue, we need to refer to the Mohs scale, which is the scale that classifies the hardness of stones. This scale was created by the German geologist Friedrich Mohs in 1812 and uses 10 reference minerals, each of which can scratch minerals with a lower hardness and can be scratched by those with a higher hardness. Hardness in this scale is defined by how a mineral can resist abrasion or deformation, and it ranges from the lowest value of 1, which corresponds to talc, up to the highest value of 10 attributed to diamond, the hardest natural mineral known. The scale follows this order and ranks from the softest to the hardest: talc, gypsum, calcite, fluorite, apatite, orthoclase feldspar, quartz, topaz, corundum, and finally, diamond. Diorite, which is the material used to make the vases found in Djoser's collection, is located between the 6th and 7th positions on the Mohs scale. To get an idea of the hardness of the material these vases are made of, just consider that steel is in the 4th position on this scale. This means that a steel tip is not able to scratch diorite. Clearly, we're talking about hardness and not strength. To be clear, if we hit a diorite vase with a hammer, it will break into 1,000 pieces, while this does not happen with an object made of steel. So hardness is something else, and in the case of diorite, even today we would have difficulty making similar artifacts. Diorite or even granite are often used to make statues or sculptures. But making a vase, even if it may seem simpler, is actually a much more complex operation. In fact, if it's already complicated to work these materials from the outside, working such hard materials from the inside, think about the inside of a vase, becomes almost impossible. And if, like the vases of Djoser, these have a narrow and elongated neck while the body is wide, even today it is impossible to understand how a primitive people could have worked them. The only possibility is that tools equipped with tips or brushes made of quartz, emerald, or diamond were used. However, according to archaeologists, the ancient Egyptians, who lived thousands of years ago, did not have such advanced tools. Furthermore, for vases characterized by a very narrow neck or a body that is particularly wide compared to the neck, even this technique would not have been applicable. Assuming hypothetically that the skilled Egyptian craftsmen had devoted themselves with extraordinary dedication to using quartz powder to shape the vases, the mystery of how they could carve the inside of the vase itself still remains. It becomes clear that, due to intrinsic technical limitations, the empty space inside the vase could not have been wider than the diameter of the vase's neck. But this is not the only problem that arises. By observing the vases, one notices that they have a perfect roundness, like the one achieved by master potters using a wheel, but achieving such perfect roundness by carving stone is an impossible task. In addition to this, what is also surprising are the extremely fine engravings, which, according to the opinion of many experts, would have been made with tiny tips, measuring an incredible 0.12 millimeters. In short, Djoser's vases are an extraordinary puzzle, and at this point, it's inevitable to wonder why the ancient Egyptians made everyday objects out of such a hard and difficult to work stone. Did these objects perhaps have purposes and uses unknown to us? Another peculiar aspect is that the oldest vases, those attributed to the most ancient dynasties, are made of diorite, while those from the more recent dynasties are made with softer materials, as if the technique or the purpose for which the oldest vases were made had been lost. But this is not a new aspect in ancient Egyptian culture. We also find this in the pyramids, where we see that those with a more complex construction are the ones attributed to the oldest dynasties. These pyramids of Giza, while those attributed to the more recent dynasties, appear much less elaborate, and many of them today are nothing more than piles of stones. And what if we admitted that the pyramids are not, as Egyptologists claim, the tombs where the pharaohs were buried, but that they had functions unknown to us? It is plausible that Djoser's vases are not just simple containers, but that their incredible peculiarities had specific reasons behind them that we are unaware of. And this would explain another unclear fact: the place where these extraordinary artifacts were found. Djoser's pyramid stands out from the others because of its unique stepped shape, a real anomaly compared to the regular pyramids we are used to. But the aspect that makes it even more enigmatic, and that many people don't know about, is the underground complex hidden beneath it. A network of tunnels extends for about 6 kilometers, branching out from a central chamber located 28 meters deep, with a diameter of about 7 meters. Egyptologists believe that these underground chambers and rooms were used for the burial of Pharaoh Djoser. But it goes without saying that the pharaoh's body has never been found inside them, nor any artifacts that could clearly indicate that this structure had a funerary purpose. Something else entirely was found in its depths, specifically in 1920, when the exploration of the deepest shafts, about 50 meters underground, led to the discovery of an unexpected treasure, the 40,000 stone vessels of various shapes and sizes that we have talked about until now. These artifacts have remained perfectly preserved for thousands of years, but why hide them deep beneath the pyramid? What were these vessels used for? The mystery of their purpose remains unsolved to this day. The Egyptologists' hypothesis is that these were meant to accompany the pharaoh into the afterlife, providing him with everything he needed. However, the presence of names engraved on the vessels, including those of some of Djoser's predecessors and minor figures, complicates the matter. Why so many vessels, and why placed at such a depth? The 7th level, where they were found, according to what Egyptologists say, was meant to protect them from possible tomb robbers. However, this explanation raises many doubts and questions, especially if we accept the Egyptologists' theory that the tomb robbers still managed to steal the pharaoh's body but left the vessels in place. The real problem is that the craftsmanship of these vessels not only leaves us perplexed, but it's hard to imagine they were made with the technology of that time. These artifacts could be the result of advanced knowledge that existed before Pharaoh Djoser, who may have simply safeguarded the secret and did so by keeping them in a remote place, several meters beneath the step pyramid. These 40,000 stone vessels could therefore be witnesses to a distant era and the solution to a mystery that remains unsolved. A mystery that could hide the existence of an ancient civilization, a civilization described in mythology and in the sacred texts of many cultures, and that is just waiting to be discovered.
In front of the Pillars of Hercules, there is an island in the sea, about 5,000 stadia in size, located many days sailing west from Libya. It is said that it was once dedicated to Poseidon, and that its king was Atlas, from whom both the island and the surrounding sea took their name. Later, due to a conflict that arose between the inhabitants of the island and the Athenians, Poseidon came to the aid of his sons. But Zeus, being the father of Athena, who was the leader of the Athenians, came to their aid in turn. A violent and terrible battle broke out, in which all the fighters perished on both sides. Zeus, angered by the death of his children, unleashed an earthquake and a flood that submerged the island and made it disappear into the sea.
At this point, we are really curious to know your opinion. Write in the comments what you think, and if you like the video, don't forget to support our work by subscribing to the channel. See you in the next story.